Hey guys, I've got an Elder Scrolls-based story today. You might also hear some difference in mic quality, and for that, I apologize. So, I'm still a relatively new DM. I've tried to run Curse of Strahd already a couple of times. My boyfriend at the time convinced me that I should run Curse of Strahd one more time, so I agreed. Though, at the time, I wasn't really in a good place to start a new campaign, as I was already DMing 2 other games, as of then, every week. Being the person that I am, I found myself a bit overwhelmed as I realized that I was in 3 games that I was DMing and wanted to drop that number down. So I stopped running the one that I wasn't having much fun with, and I also dropped the other one which just had a bunch of new players. But I actually was enjoying running the Curse of Strahd game. It was honestly amazing. Players were getting into character, and we were gushing in and out of game as to what we would do next. It was a blast. So, I had decided that I wanted to expand on the module, and pushed through new plot hooks, new places, and better connections to the story itself. I had 4 players in my game: a fighter, a wizard, a paladin, and a barbarity fonker, which is a barbarian monk artificer. So, time went by, and they reached one of the major towns in the module. They completed a few quests and gained a few plot points and continued the story forward. The fighter realized that they had a pretty important role in the module, which everyone did, just at different points. Theirs, however, was first. He used this to work with the BBEG, and cheat the rest of the party out of 2 or 3 important relics that they would need for the final fight, all for an exchange of a +2 plate mail. I know I'm probably a problem here, but the rest of the party seemed okay with it at the time. And then, the fighter started acting weird. Remember, players talk in and out of character. And we'd even had some one-on-ones for players who wanted to do more but would have taken the entire session for them to accomplish their goals. This was also online, so the one-on-ones were held so anyone who wanted to listen in could. It's great since one of them changed one of their PCs completely. Out of the blue, he said he was suspicious of a certain NPC without any real reasonable explanation, and just started causing issues in the town. So then he decided that he wanted to also leave the town that they're in. So I asked him what he was going to do outside of the town, and if he was going to try to make his way towards the next one that they knew about. But no. I had an NPC see him leaving, and asked him what was going on, which got no real explanation. He was just going to leave the town. So I asked him every reason that I could think of as to why he's going out in the woods. And he just kept pushing with the non-reasoning. So I finally asked him if he wanted to make a new character. That somehow got him to come to his senses, and he stated that he wanted to keep playing this one and decided to come back to the town with the rest of the party. So, a bit weird, but we kept going. The party eventually met a wizard that was kind of a jerk, and I had left clues in other places of the map implying this guy's strength. So, they were talking to this guy when the fighter told me that he walked up to him. They were letting him monologue for a bit when the fighter said, "I attack him." So I told him, "Okay, we're going to roll initiative." "But don't I get a surprise round?" "No, you're standing in front of him and pulling out your weapon in front of you. I told you that he is watching all of you." "But I was trying for surprise." "But you didn't roll for anything that would imply surprise, nor did you ask me anything. But you still won the initiative, so you'll still be going first." He pitched a bit of a fit about not getting his surprise round, but didn't ask to take back his attack or anything. And so, the level 5 party rolled initiative. With full permission to be evil to the party, one psychic scream later, they were all down or in rough shape. All except for one who was the Barbarifonker, who wasn't in sight of the Archmage. The fighter was whining to me about that one later on, but I held my ground on it, and the party had some fun. They found some journals that were in a language that none of them actually knew, and they continued the plot forward from there. The fighter started saying he wanted to do things in character that should really be discussed over a one-on-one, so I brought that up. He said that he didn't want to do that, which, fair enough. So I asked him for footnotes as to what he wanted from it. He gave them, and I acquiesced to include it in the storyline. He also said that he wanted to start playing Vampire the Masquerade, since he liked things he saw from the system, and that I should help him find a group or run a session of my own. I agreed and wound up doing all the legwork to find an amazing storyteller willing to take on new players to the game, and I made a Salubri who was pretending to be a Toreador. And then the Paladin went MIA for a while. We were concerned, but assumed it was a game day thing or something. It was. So, we had the session anyway, since it wasn't too focused on his character. The wizard had a friend who asked if he could listen in, so I agreed since we were enjoying running the game a lot. And if other people would want to listen in, then awesome. And then enter the warlock. When they joined in, I offered to let them play the NPC wizard. Not the same one that screamed, and they agreed. They had fun, and the fighter suggested that I should let the warlock join in as a player completely, to which I also agreed. The paladin returned and we cut him up, and we continued on. The players made it clear to the other side of the map where there was a bunch of things going on. They fought off the enemies, and the players decided to set up camp. It was about an hour before the end of the session, so I got ready with some of my RP stuff when the fighter suddenly spoke over me and said,
"And that's where we're going to end this session."
An awkward pause ensued, since... What? I asked him why, and he said that he was going to go to bed. We were still kinda wanting to play, so I asked him if it was okay if we could still RP.
"Oh yeah, that's fine. Kinda sucks to keep going without all the players present, but whatever."
He left the call, and I saw him playing a game for the time after session. I had some roleplay, or more like letting the other party settle down and finish out the day, and to find out where they would want to pick the game back up. And to anyone wondering, he insisted that he wanted to go to bed early since it was daylight savings, and he didn't want to lose sleep, despite the fact that the clocks went forward the night before. He then posted online that he wanted to end the game an hour earlier than we had been doing so for months. In the next session, I had things kind of start up again. They were in a private sanctum, but despite that, they heard something whispering to each of them. They peered their heads out of the sanctum and saw things that seemed to be from the past, but not the past that they remembered. All of the party had a good time, until the fighter's turn came. I did the same to his character, who insisted on not long resting, mind you, and ignored it. He insisted that, despite people really only looking a little bit worried by what they saw out there, and not hurt, he suddenly knew that it was some evil entity out there. The BBEG was out there physically talking to him at some point, and that got him out of the sanctum, asking him this and that. And when the fighter decided to go inside, I still wanted to describe something for it, to get them all in character, and so I wrote a lot. It was more to describe what I had written down, and he didn't have to react to it. "And if you look up to see..."
"I don't look up, I don't look at it."
"Okay, but just..."
"My character's too smart for this. I'm not going to look up at it, falling for the tricks of this place."
I later told him out of game that I just wanted to describe it, since I had something for everyone written, and that he didn't have to react in character to it, and could have just ignored it in character. He told me that I was disrespecting his agency as a player, and that I shouldn't have done any of that and just let him play his character how he wanted. Which, okay, if I was coming off as pushy about it, then that's fair enough to say. The party went back to one of the towns, the closest one to where they're at, and the fighter started messaging me about his character again. About how he's so excited since his characters figured out this place and the Dark Powers game. And how his fighter achieved Chim. And for those of you who don't know, Chim is an Elder Scrolls Lord of Enlightenment / meta-knowledge thing. Or at least that's what he told me it was. I told him that I didn't think that it fit my game's theme, and that his character didn't have that kind of information to conclude the answer, and that even the BBEG didn't have that kind of info. He seemed to agree, and then in the very next session, tried to RP having Chim with the wizard. The wizard said in character that it didn't make sense, and he replied with,
"You just don't get it."
So a few sessions later, they were fighting a Dullahan on a bridge. Despite the fact that I've emphasized that there's room on the very edge of the bridge after he's made 5 attacks, the fighter decides to try to pole vault from a standing position over the Dullahan and land 10 feet away on the other side of the creature. I tell him that's not really possible, and he has a bit of a hissy fit about it. And to emphasize, he wanted to pole vault over the Dullahan after making 5 attacks in a standing position with his glaive to land 10 feet away on the other side of it and not count as an action. So he whines that he has to get within range of the Dullahan's attacks and gets close before ending his turn. And then the Dullahan uses his legendary action to strike the fighter and gets a natural 20. They have a unique ability that if they crit on the attack, then the player has to make a Constitution saving throw, and if they fail, they lose their head. So the fighter rolls for a save, and gets a nat 1. He rage quit. He then started messaging me about this and that about the party, telling me about how everyone else sucks and how he wasn't enjoying the game's direction anyway. He also tried to say his vampire knew my Toreador was actually a Salubri, and how he was going to eat her, despite having no in-game reason to suspect her. He also said that the Archfey that the party had befriended and saved was definitely going to betray the party, and that they were just going to TPK in the next session without him anyway. So anyway, the fighter and I broke up for more than just this. But thanks for listening. One can't help but wonder just how crappy of a person a lot of these guys can be outside of the game. This guy sounded like he had main characteritis, as well as being a vindictive twit. Needless to say, the OP did right by dropping this guy. But anyway,